The following is a video series reviewing the top 20 most common bird species found in St. Joseph and Elkhart counties of Indiana. The data was gathered from eBird.org, a website used to record bird sightings and observations. The report covers the past 10 years, 2010 to 2020, of observations in St. Joseph and Elkhart counties. It represents the most commonly reported, not necessarily the most abundant. This methodology helps to standardize the data between birds that travel in large groups and those that are more solitary. Coming in at number 14 is the Tufted Titmouse, or the Baeolophus bicolor. The Tufted Titmouse is part of the family Paridae, or the titmouse family. The Tufted Titmouse is a small songbird with a slate gray colored head, crest, wings, back, and tail. Their front side is whitish cream colored with a little orangish rust color on their flanks or sides underneath their wings. The eyes and bill are black, and sometimes they also have a little black spot above their bill between their eyes. Their bills are short and stout, and the sexes are identical. Overall size of the Tufted Titmouse is 5.5 to 6.3 inches. Here are some photos of the Tufted Titmouse. As you can see, depending on the light, the slate color can sometimes appear more blue than gray. Sometimes the orange on the flanks really stand out, and other times it is very faint or not seen at all. The height of their crest can vary from time to time too. Finally, notice how in each of these photos, their black beady eyes, black spot between their eyes, and the black bill really stand out against the lightness of the rest of the bird's feathers. Here's a map of the distribution of the Tufted Titmouse. They are found in the eastern half of the contiguous United States, and they are a year-round resident to Indiana. Tufted titmice are primarily a forest bird, but they will venture out of the woods short distances to backyard feeders when trees are nearby for their protection. Like many other songbirds, tufted titmice are busy little birds, always on the move from branch to branch, foraging in a gleaning manner. Sometimes they will venture to the forest floor to find food as well. They will spend the months leading up to winter foraging for seeds and caching them so they have food for the winter when food is more scarce. One notable behavioral trait about tufted titmice is that they will often help in the effort to alarm other birds of a nearby predator, like a bird of prey or even a human, walking through the woods, by making a variety of different calls and sounds. Tufted titmouse's song has the mnemonic, "Peter, Peter, Peter," which can be repeated up to 11 times in a row by both males and females. Let's take a listen. We are going to listen to one more variation of the song, which you'll notice has a different tone than the first one, says more of a peet, 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 but the same rhythmic whistle. The tufted titmouse also makes a scratchy nasal call, which they often use to scold other birds or when predators are present. Let's take a listen to a couple of examples of their call. And here's the other example. The tufted titmouse is an omnivore, meaning they eat both plants and insects. Their diet changes throughout the year. They eat mostly insects in the summer, and they forage on seeds, grains, and berries during the winter. Are tufted titmice feeder birds? Yes, they will frequent feeders in suburban areas that are near their natural habitat or with nearby trees. Tufted titmice will eat from a variety of feeders, including small and large tube feeders, hoppers, platform feeders, and will even feed on the ground. Most of the time, they will eat or cache black oil sunflower seeds, hulled sunflower seeds, safflower, Niger, peanuts, and peanut hearts from feeders, but they will also take dried insects like mealworms from feeding stations too. The tufted titmouse's average clutch size is 5 to 6 eggs. Rather than building a nest of their own, tufted titmice will use old woodpecker cavity nests, which are excavated in trees. They will line the cavity nest with damp leaves, moss, dried grasses, mammal fur, and strips of bark. Of course, this is not a bird that is in major trouble here in Indiana, but let's take a look at its worldwide status. In 2016, the tufted titmouse was considered least concern by the IUCN Red List. This means that the species population does not qualify as threatened or endangered. And what about the tufted titmouse's vulnerability to climate change? Remember, climate change is the term used to refer to the Earth's average increase in global temperatures in the last 50 years due to human activity. The temperatures rising just slightly, think only a few degrees, can have a massive impact on birds. In 2019, National Audubon Society released their publication of the Survival by Degrees 389 Bird Species on the Brink, which focused on bird species' risk of extinction due to climate change. Their report found that for northern Indiana, the tufted titmouse is considered to be at a low risk of extinction due to climate change. Now let's review some other bird species that are sometimes confused with the tufted titmouse in our region. Beginning birders sometimes think tufted titmice are female cardinals or juvenile cardinals. While they both have a crest on their head and black eye, that is where the similarities end. Cardinals, even females and juveniles, always have more of a reddish-brown cast to them rather than the slate gray on the tufted titmouse. Also, cardinals, by the time they leave the nest, are much larger than a tufted titmouse. Remember, tufted titmice are only about 5 inches in length, whereas cardinals are 8.5 to 9 inches. Beginning birders can sometimes confuse tufted titmice for white-breasted nuthatches. That makes sense since they are both very common birds of Indiana, found in the same habitat, about the same size, and have the same colors. Both have slate gray on their backside and whitish cream color on their front. However, there are key differences in their shape and foraging behavior which set them apart from one another. The white-breasted nuthatch does not have the crest on their head like the tufted titmouse does. Also, let's compare their beaks. The white-breasted nuthatch's beak is much longer and more narrow than the stout bill of the tufted titmouse. Finally, look at the way the nuthatch is perched on the side of the tree. Nuthatches are notorious for climbing tree trunks head first, or upside down, which the titmouse does not do. Another songbird found in the woods amongst titmice and nuthatches are black-capped chickadees. Some might confuse chickadees with tufted titmice because they are small, grayish songbirds often found in the same habitat. However, the black-capped chickadee's head is far more rounded, lacking that famous titmouse crest. Also, the chickadee has a bold black and white head, whereas the titmouse's is mostly slate gray. Sometimes, if the lighting is just right, a tufted titmouse can appear more blue than gray. For this reason, some might confuse one for a bluebird. Eastern bluebirds are also native to our area, but there are some key differences that distinguish them from titmice. Just like on the nuthatch and chickadee, the crown of the head is rounded, whereas the titmouse's head is pointed. Also, bluebirds, even the females, have far more blue on them than a titmouse, and their orange rust color covers their neck, breast, belly, and flanks, whereas the titmouse's rust is only on their flanks. Finally, consider the habitat in which you observe the bird. Bluebirds are found in more open spaces, like grasslands and old agricultural fields, whereas titmice are found in more wooded areas. Thank you for watching the video on number 14, the tufted titmouse, commonly found in St. Joseph and Elkhart counties of Indiana. For more information on other common birds found in this region, please visit sbeaudubon.org. The sources for this video are listed in the video description.